You know, in today's marketing world, chaos kind of feels like the default setting, right? So today we're going to break down Agile marketing, a really powerful approach that can become your team's new high-performance operating system.
I love this quote because it just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? You've got more channels, more data, and more speed than ever before, but the old ways of working just can't keep up. It feels less like an amazing opportunity and more like, well, just overwhelming chaos.
So, here's our roadmap for the next few minutes. First, we'll dig into marketing's modern crisis. Then we'll look at the Agile answer, cover its 6 core disciplines, the 4 big cultural shifts you need, and finally, how to actually make it all happen.
All right, so let's dive right into the problem itself. Why are so many incredibly talented marketing teams out there struggling to turn all their potential into real, measurable impact? Well, the issue usually isn't the people, it's the process.
And this is really the core of the problem, the big disconnect. So many teams are trying to run on an old analog OS, with these massive long-term plans and teams that are stuck in their own silos. But they're living in a completely digital world of insane speed and constant change, where customers expect you to be relevant like right now. The old system just wasn't built for this reality.
Okay, so if the old system is broken, what's the fix? Well, this is where Agile marketing comes in. And it's so much more than just a new tactic, it's a fundamental reinvention of how marketing actually gets done.
So what exactly is Agile marketing? Well, at its core, it's a framework for navigating uncertainty. It's a disciplined, structured way of working that builds your team's muscle for responding to change, which in turn radically improves both your productivity and your effectiveness.
And this whole idea isn't brand new. It's got some history. It was actually inspired by the 2001 Agile Software Manifesto, which was a total rebellion against those rigid, old-school development models. Then, in 2012, at a meeting they nicknamed Sprint Zero, a bunch of marketers got together and adapted those principles for their own unique challenges. And that's how the Agile Marketing Manifesto was born.
Now, the first core value is a really big one. Validated learning over opinions and conventions. This is the ultimate weapon against the highest paid person's opinion, or the hippo in the room. There's a great story about a Coca-Cola exec telling his CEO, "We have to make ads for consumers, not for you." That's the Agile mindset. Real data and testing, not someone's job title, decide what's right.
The second big value is moving away from these huge big bang campaigns and toward adaptive ones. So instead of betting your entire budget on one massive risky launch, you run lots of small experiments. You find out what actually works using data, and then you scale up your investment. It's just a smarter and frankly a much less risky way to operate.
Okay, so that's the what and the why. But what about the how? How do you actually put all of this into practice? Let's get into the 6 core disciplines that make up the Agile toolkit.
I want you to think of these disciplines not as a checklist, but more like a continuous loop. It all starts with getting everyone aligned on the business goals and structuring your teams around the customer. From there, you manage your process, you use data to learn and adapt constantly, and you channel all of that into creating truly remarkable customer experiences.
Now, for that process management piece, teams usually pick one of 2 main flavors, Scrum or Kanban. Scrum uses these short, fixed-length cycles called sprints, which is awesome for planned, iterative projects. Kanban, on the other hand, is a continuous flow system. It's perfect for teams that handle a constant stream of unpredictable requests. Think of a social media team, for example.
So this number, 10x, what's that all about? Well, it's all about the power of validated learning. Twitter, for example, totally accelerated its user growth by increasing how often they tested things. They went from running a few tests a month to over 10 a week. That high-speed testing created high-speed learning, and that learning directly fueled their growth. It's pretty amazing. So how do Agile teams stay adaptable? Well, they don't just react. They plan for it by managing their work like an investment portfolio. The 70-20-10 rule is a simple but powerful way to do this. 70% of your effort goes to your core activities, 20% goes to new but related innovations, and that last 10% is for those big, transformative, game-changing bets. It's how you balance getting things done today with building for tomorrow.
But here's the thing, and this is super important. You can have all the right tools and processes, but if the culture isn't there, it's just not going to stick. For Agile to really work, you need a fundamental shift in mindset, and that almost always needs strong support from leadership.
And making that culture real really boils down to these 4 big foundational changes in how you think, moving from outputs to outcomes,
shifting from an internal focus to a customer focus, trading static plans for adaptive ones, and moving away from top-down control toward decentralized decisions.
Let's talk about that first cultural shift, because it's a biggie. It's so easy to get caught in the trap of being busy, right? Pumping out more blog posts, more emails, whatever. But as this quote points out, that doesn't guarantee better business outcomes, like revenue or customer loyalty. The real shift is moving from measuring activity to measuring actual impact.
And what about decentralized decisions? This number, $2,000, tells an amazing story. At the Ritz-Carlton, any frontline employee is empowered to spend up to $2,000 to solve a guest's problem right on the spot. No need to ask a manager. That is what it looks like to trust your team and empower them to do what's right for the customer.
All right, so this all sounds great, right? But where on earth do you even start? Let's get practical and talk about your first steps on the Agile journey. The key here is don't try to boil the ocean. You got to start small, maybe with a single pilot project, and make sure you get a sponsor from management who's got your back. When you get a win, and you will, share that success story far and wide. Focus on hiring T-shaped people, folks with deep expertise in one area, but also broad skills to collaborate with everyone. And finally, build allies outside of marketing who can help champion this new way of working. And that really brings us to the final and maybe most important question. Agile teams were able to pivot incredibly fast during the pandemic because they were already built to respond to change. With the next major disruption always just around the corner, the question isn't just about being more efficient, it's about being more adaptable. So, is your team truly built for what's next?